It's a well-known fact that I am a loser. I have accepted this. It's who I am. I say that because I love professional wrestling. We've talked about this before. I've gone to hundreds of wrestling events across the Midwest, and I absolutely love wrestling. The current product of wrestling is a little different, and I'm not as big of a fan. The matches I still love, but the thing that they missed out on are the promos. Guys that could flat out talk. Just give them a microphone and they cut a shoot video to where you're left speechless, on the edge of your seat the whole time. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, the cream of the crop. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, cutting a promo in his alligators, having a hard time keeping the alligators down, and everybody knows that. And it's a great promo that they cut. But the very best at cutting a promo, in my opinion, in my humble yet accurate opinion, is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And of all his promos that he cut, Hard Times is the most known by wrestling fans everywhere. We're talking about hard times, Daddy. The son of a plumber, winding dines on pork and beans and alleys and living with kings and queens, and it goes all. It's just, if you've got time, actually, I'm not even going to say that. Go Google "Hard Times" by Dusty Rhodes, and you will love it. That is what cutting a promo is all about. But it's that mindset of hard times. We all go through hard times. We all go through issues in our lives. We all have struggles. We all have failures. We all have adversity that we have to overcome. Every day there's some new issue going on that stops us dead in our tracks. For seems like 2 years now we've been fighting a pandemic of the Rona, and how it's slowed everything down and it's caused all kinds of issues, physical, emotional, mental, financial. It just, the hard times are there and we feel them. The Bible is full of men and women who have gone through hard times. The most known of all of them is Job. And I can use that as an example today. Job did go through hard times. He was the most blessed by God. And then has it all taken away. His health's taken from him. Life is miserable. And he goes through all those hard times and comes out shining at the end because he persevered through those hard times. But Genesis chapter 37 gives us the starting spot of a story of a boy named Joseph. At the time, he's 17 years old. He's the son of Jacob. And he's blessed by Jacob. He's Jacob's favorite. As the favorite son of my parents and anybody in my family, I understand where he's coming from. And I know the jealousy that can come from the other brothers. And that's exactly what I'm not saying that my brother is jealous of all this. I'm sure he is. But these brothers of Joseph, they were jealous. And so they concocted a plan. They were going to get rid of their dad's favorite son. And instead of just killing him, they throw him in a pit and they sell him to slave traders. Great brothers. But they were jealous. They were full of rage because he was the favorite, but not only that, he had these visions, these dreams of how grand he was going to be, and God was going to do this, and God was going to do that, and then he finally had enough, and they sell him into the slave trade. And he's taken away. He does his work. Most people, when they're faced with that hard time, they give up. He doesn't. He does what he needs to do, and he remains who he is as God's child. And he does the work, and his reputation begins to grow. And he's in Potiphar's house as a servant, and he's treated well, but Potiphar's wife makes advances on him. And he stays away from her. He's not into this because he knows what's right and what's wrong. And he doesn't partake in it. And she falsely accuses him of trying to rape her. So he's thrown in prison. Another hard time in this kid's life. And as he's in prison, he interprets dreams. He's brought into Pharaoh's house in Egypt, where he gives interpretations of dreams that Pharaoh's have. And then he rises to the ranks of the Egyptians, and soon he's in command. He's in charge. He's a leader. His brothers come as a famine is approaching, as life is getting hard on them. Talk about hard times for Joseph. Their lives are hard because of a famine that Joseph interpreted a dream that would happen. And Joseph is the one that's face to face with his brothers. And he's overcome all his hard times. He's defeated all the issues in life, and he accepts them back into his life and lets him know he loves them. Because what they intended to harm him, what they intended to hurt him, God used to make him stronger. God used to further his kingdom through Joseph. Imagine if Joseph had given up when they sold him into slavery. We wouldn't have the next stories coming out of Egypt, which is God saving the Israelites through Moses. We wouldn't have David later on. We wouldn't have Samson. We wouldn't have Solomon. We wouldn't have Jesus. All these great men and women throughout the Bible had Joseph given up and not done what he needed to do and been who he was supposed to have been. And if he had looked at those hard times and quit, we wouldn't have what we have today. God uses those hard times. I said as we were going through the Bible study of the past 2 years that we we're going to come back to some books. There are some books that just demand more than just 1 week. And it killed me to try to overview a book in 1 week, but we had to do that way. And James is the first book that we're going to revisit. James chapter 1, verse 2 says, "Count it all joys, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, and the rich in his humiliation, because, like a flower of the grass, he will pass away. For the sun rises with a scorching heat, and withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beauty perishes. So also the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." And that's the first portion of James that we're going to talk about in the next couple weeks. Hard times. We all go through them. We all handle them different ways. But it's what we do in those hard times that matters. It's what makes us. And that first verse, actually it's the second verse, verse 2. "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of various kinds." Notice, and this is the first thing that we want to point out, is we experience trials. It doesn't say if you've experienced trials. No, it says when you face trials, when you face troubles, when you face tribulation. Whatever your translation may say, it's when you face it. Bottom line is this: we are all going to have hard times. We are all going to go through hard times. We're all going to experience it. We're all going to have these trials. And Job, Joseph, Jesus says he's beaten and then hung on a cross. The apostles, the disciples, they were all beaten and stoned, and they were, in some cases, hung on a cross upside down, or they were hanged, or they were, like John, thrown in a pit of boiling oil. James thrown off a temple. We all go through hard times. Hopefully not as hard as some of those, but we all go through hard times. And that's the first thing that James needs to remind us is we all experience it. And I think the opening line there, while I think it is the dumbest thing to say, makes sense. Count it all joy when you go through these trials, because we know what they're doing. Okay? So we experience trials. We experience hard times. We get through hard times. There is a purpose. There is a purpose for what Joseph went through. Well, I'm sure while he's sitting in a pit waiting to be sold into the slave trade, he's wondering, God, what's your big grand plan with this? As he's being thrown into prison for being falsely accused of rape, I'm sure he's sitting there, what are you thinking? How are you going to accomplish what you're... But God's sitting there saying, just hold tight, because I'm going to rise you up and place you in a powerful spot, because it's for my glory, not for yours. And it's going to make you, it's the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's what we got to look at with these things. Verse 3, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And verse 4 says, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. We go through those hard times to make us stronger, to make us better, to persevere through life. If life is a bed of roses, would we know what a rose is? Will we know the beauty of a rose? Will we know the scent of a rose? No. But we have weeds and we have nastiness and we have poison ivy mixed in throughout those, and we see the beauty of that rose. And that's what hard times are. It makes us stronger and reflects the beauty of who God is. I think to our baseball team, we go through the same drills every practice over and over and over, repetitiveness. Why? To build us up ready for that moment when it comes. And that's what hard times are for us as a Christian. We go through these hard times to make us stronger. And that brings us to the last point, is we overcome our hard times through Christ. Beginning in verse 5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all the wisdom reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with not doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. You see, with Joseph, the key to his life of overcoming the adversity and the hard times he faced was he remained faithful to the Lord and asked God for guidance. And that's how we overcome, is we turn to the Lord when those hard times come, when the struggles come, when the fights come, when we're going through all the issues of the world. Keep your eyes on Christ and ask of the Lord. Now I'm going to skip down to verse 12. When we've asked God for that wisdom, he says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life which God has promised to those who love him. When we overcome, when we persevere through those hard times, when we go through them and we experience them, when we stand strong, as Paul says when he's talking about the armor of God, which we're going to talk about here in a few weeks, when he talks about the armor of God, he says, when you've done all you can do to stand, stand firm. When we do that, when we stand in the face of adversity, when we go through those hard times, God is there with us. And when we get through them with God by our side, we have a crown of life. Also, as Paul says in 2 Timothy chapter 4, he says, I have run my race, I have fought my fight, and now there is waiting for me a crown of righteousness waiting, because I did not give up. Don't give up. Keep going through the issues you're going through. And that's what James is telling us in that first portion of James chapter 1, is we're going to experience hard times. We're going to go through hard times. We're going to live through hard times. We're going to persevere through hard times. And we are going to overcome hard times. But the only way that you're going to overcome the hard times of life, everybody talks about the issues in this world and how we're dealing with them, and medications and drugs and alcohol and money and wealth and all the things we turn to. All those things are going to fail you. The only way you're going to get through the hard times, the depression, the despair, the agony that is on you, to steal a line from Hee Haw, the only way you're going to overcome hard times is through God and keeping your eyes focused on Him and the crown of life that waits for you when you persevere, when you overcome, when you finish that race. Don't give up. Don't give in. You're going to experience the hard times. You're going to have to go through the hard times. You're going to have to persevere through the hard times. And when we finally overcome them, we're going to stand victorious. And that is what it's all about. And that is why we can take joy and facing trials of many kinds, because at the end of the day, there's a crown of life waiting for you. Don't give up. Don't give in. Persevere. Have a great week.